Hey guys, welcome to Sopi Studio Umbiamas, conectando Aruba com o mundo via vídeo podcasting. Conectar conosco, compartilhar ideias e histórias para nos inspirar e para conan abrir. Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast na Aruba. Follow-nos riba Facebook, subscribe riba YouTube ou riba plataforma de podcast preferido. Escute o podcast preferido que hora e onde que tá. Sopi Studio, powered by Qredits. Botiu ideia? Qredits educa e prepara abo para ser um empresário exitoso. De business plan, guia personal e préstamo para negócio até com 100,000 forinhos. Bira para mês donho com Qredits. Sopi. Passa na Sopi para o sop, salada, wrap ou flatbread e mais fresco. Com 7 localidades rond Aruba. Nós está cerca de Ibo. Sopi. SwingMasterz. Organizando events, conferences of weddings, mister de luz, sound, staging, DJ, trussing of LED screen, SwingMasterz está claro para ser boa fiesta éxito. SwingMasterz. E agora, Sopi Studio é plataforma de podcast de Aruba, está apresentar.
We're live. Good morning. If you just woke up, and
there we go.
Good afternoon. If you, the soundtrack is a bit different.
Yes, it is. You didn't expect this? You just clicked something?
I clicked new retro wave, and it's kind of like not up my alley. So we'll do a little change here. Introductions.
Yes. My name is Jean-Luc. I am a student at the University of Aruba, and I've had an interest in tech and games my entire life.
Bruce Harms here, multimedia engineer, and interested in social technology, and we'll be talking about that more. And today, we've got an very interesting subject. My son is not a fan. I'm a recent fan, and let's talk about it. F1.
You say that as if like I don't enjoy it. I just haven't gotten into it. But before that, sponsors.
Yes.
Subway. Thanks to Subway. Eat fresh. Thank you to SwingMasterz, especially for this amazing setup.
And studio.
And Qredits.
Yes, and I'll be seeing them soon. A shout out to Mr. Koning, Mauro Koning. And I'll be visiting soon to help with technology and awareness.
Hell yeah.
So, our good old friends from F1, why do I think it's interesting to talk about a tech impact? I think that F1 is the apex of all technology.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. They are the fastest cars on the planet. They are engineered for maximum technology for protection for a driver. They run on Amazon servers.
The cars?
No.
Oh.
The platform.
The platform.
Yeah. You see, this is what I've realized, right? So we've got people that race.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's a structure. And they communicate through intercoms.
Yes,
and they've got
yes.
data on the performances.
Yes.
They've got data on the curves and how they speed up and accelerate.
Temperatures. Yes.
They do data analytics and aerodynamics and engineer engines to perform with very interesting forms of gasoline. if you think about it, F1 is a production company. They produce shows.
Oh.
They produce events and races.
Yes.
Right.
$1 billion races. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And they also compete for the internet space, which is media rights space. And right now I have a F1 Pro account. So I pay, I think it's whatever it is, $15 a month. And I get access to F1 TV on a browser.
Oh.
And I think it's not locked in any location.
Nice.
So from a production standpoint, if you really just step back and you go, man, this is where it's all happening, right? So I actually made a little list. Let me pull it off. See, now that I said it, you're thinking, oh, that's right. So can you imagine on the car, it says AWS.
Oh. Yeah. And the cars usually have a ton of sponsors on top of it. Yeah.
AWS is Amazon Web Servers, and they're basically known for elastic computing, and which means that you buy what you need, right? So if you have a website and you want to upgrade it to a shop, and you want to upgrade it using AI technology for big data, that's the elastic part. You can put in and put out, right?
So it's almost modular, except it's digital.
Yeah, but they call it elastic. So, I think from a branding standpoint, it's interesting. Yeah. So let me break it down. So if you look at it, Amazon AWS is statistics and design. So they use both things. So when you're watching the show and you're watching the data streaming, the superimposed on the image, when you see the car pass by and it says live kilometers 325, that's run through an AWS server.
Oh.
Right? Of course. We don't think about these things because we're just looking at it and enjoying it.
But
right?
where's the data being hosted and analyzed? And
exactly.
Yeah.
F1 has a subscription platform, right? So they run a very complicated website with highest point of media rich, right? But they also produce shows.
Yes.
And so
entire
the event is a show,
yeah.
but they also have. I have an F1 account now. It's interesting. I can watch a pre-show and I can watch analytics, and so they have a full-blown broadcasting team, and they create shows themselves. And let's talk about Drive to Survive, the F1 Netflix documentary.
Yes, isn't that the one you saw a few months ago?
Well, it's in continuation. It basically goes through every season.
So seasons.
The race season, when it's done, you get to enjoy it again and watch the documentary split in that season. So you'll go behind the scenes and see the dramas and the drivers and the mistakes, and it's all very rich. That's why I got into it. If it wasn't for the F1 documentary, I wouldn't have cared about F1 because it's weird for me to look at cars just racing, but now the drama got in there, and boom, I'm a sucker for drama. And and another thing, people, so the media production team, did you know that they have a digital gaming platform, an F1 gaming platform? And right now in the F2, so there's F1, F2, F3, there has been a winner of the online racing game, and is now a driver.
Nice. Yeah. Isn't it just F1 Tour?
I think it is. I'll pull up some information.
I've in my
it's Aramco F1 Esports Series.
I think that's the tournament, not the game.
Oh, the tournament, yeah. But I guess it would be the let me quote from F1Formula.com. F1 Esports Series Pro Championship presented by Aramco will return in the second half of 2022 with more updates to follow soon. Action in 2022 is already well underway with the F1 Esports Series Challengers starting in January with events for Xbox, PC, and PlayStation. Xbox, PC, and PlayStation competitors taking place every fortnight as competitors look to qualify for this year's Pro exhibition. So it's very interesting, the kind of development and growth and how they are so specifically targeting is actually kind of amazing if you think about it.
Yeah. And I remember when COVID just happened, F1 announced that instead of having a live tournament, they would have it via their game,
Right.
digitally, and
Yeah.
they would have the actual racers race in the game against each other.
Yeah.
And on my side in the gaming industry, that was just hugely celebrated, especially since I've heard that the game is almost as complex as real life F1 racing.
Well, I would imagine that what they're trying to do is. Let me give you a great. Yeah, here we go. So this is the famous Red Bull F1
yes.
car of this year. It's performing super well. So let's dive into the car for a second.
Isn't Tozo's crypto related?
Yes. Crypto.com is one of the big sponsors, global sponsor, which means they're the highest. See, Tezos. Yes.
Tezos.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Crypto.com is their main sponsor. That's millions of dollars, right? And interestingly, this year they've got new regulations and new rules and basically a new car.
Oh.
So it's sort of like everybody started back from scratch. And a shout out to all the Dutch fans out there, Mr. Verstappen, which is last year's world champion. Is in the front side of the seat. Oh, and what's also very interesting, Jean-Luc, and
Tell
for
me.
our listeners, that wing,
That
that
spoiler?
not spoiler, that wing, it's a wing. You know what? They have something called a DRS system, which is the drag reduction system.
Drag reduction.
And if a car gets within a certain range, I think it's 1 meter, that wing will open. And 1 second, thank you. Jeff is our producer is a huge fan, years already. I'm a recent noob, but it opens, and then they get an increase of a couple of kilometers per hour, and that's what they use for safe passing.
Wow.
So there's tactics with DRS. So imagine the sets of rules and the technology that is running. So sensors, these cars
Live.
have
Fractions of seconds.
yeah, and let me tell you, the drivers, if you look at their steering wheel, oh, look at that. That's such a beautiful car. And they've increased the wheel size, the cars go low.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
aerodynamics running through it to keep the car low. So when the car increases in speed,
It goes lower.
the aerodynamics push it down,
Yeah,
and then it has grip on the wheels, and then they can make faster turns because grip is everything.
Yes.
And and right now you can see that it has a red stripe on the tire. That is the soft tire. Then they have 3 types of tires. They have a hard tire, which is a white line, and then a yellow line for medium and soft. And softer means more grip, so those are the fastest, but they decay quickly. So it's sort of it's a balancing act.
Yes.
Tactfully, okay, which tires am I going to be on? Oh, this is McLaren, I think. Yes. And he's got the orange tire right now, so which is orange yellow, which is the medium tire. McLaren this year is not doing so well.
Oh.
Last year, my producer, were they the 4th or 5th team to win in 2020? The 4th. Yeah, they were the 4th. And you know what I love about the language? On the grid. Oh, here we go. This is, I think, Mercedes. Petronas, yes. This is the Mercedes car, but this is not this year, though, Jeff. I think that's last year's car. So, yeah.
So how much does it take? What is the effort? What's the tech and resources that goes into making that car? Those cars.
They are a fully fledged research and development team. So imagine somebody building a jet. That's what they have. They have
For a
research
car.
and development facilities, and I mean they used probably the most complicated software to figure all these things out.
It's very apt that you mention a plane, a jet, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's aerodynamics.
It's not only aerodynamics, right? But it's also about pure efficiency and pure speed, but also massive safety considerations for those inside.
Yes.
Yeah.
Interestingly, if you watch a couple of movies out there about racing in general, one of the biggest fears of any race driver is dying in fire.
Yeah.
And the proof of the improvement in development was when Grosjean, do I say that correctly, producer? Went into the wall in 2020, and he was in the fire for over 20 seconds. And you see him jump out of the car. The car was on fire. Like, imagine you're in the pit, you're in the flame. And he jumped out, and he was pretty much unscathed because they are wearing one of the most high-tech suits on the planet to protect you from fire. He had minor burns, but if you look at the image, and I highly suggest anybody to go out there, go check out the crash of Grosjean. I think it was with Haas. He crashed into the wall, and he quit. He's like, enough is enough.
Yeah, that's traumatic. Yeah,
absolutely.
Understandable.
And it's what they do out there. By the way, if you see the training that these kids, I mean, they're your age, Jean-Luc.
Insane.
They're your age, and they are training reaction time. So they do a lot of ball and high corner. They have to respond so fast. So they're kind of superhuman, really.
It is.
And when I put on the lens of science fiction, I'm looking at it. They're on the grid, right? The whole game is about where do I begin on the grid. And just for people out there that don't watch F1, you have to qualify. In the qualifying, people do circles, and they put the people on the grid depending on how fast they're going, right? So the fastest gets on 1, second fastest on 2. And interestingly, this year, the top 10 drivers are 400ths and sometimes 4,000ths of a second behind each other.
What?
So within 0.04, 0.049, 0.059.
What?
And every single driver on that grid is kind of a superhuman being.
How?
Yeah.
My question is like, this is best reflected, something that I've realized while playing video games. I'm sure they practice with virtual reality, as you briefly mentioned. Yes.
Sorry that I didn't get there.
But wait, let's get there. Okay. We will get there. Right?
We'll get there, right.
So I play games that rely heavily on reflexes.
Right.
You will only get... everything gives you a warning in game design, usually, if it's competitive, right? And I love competitive games.
Right.
And usually you get like... not even a second of animation, and 4 seconds is very short, right? But
you mean the frames?
Or
in frames,
yeah, but I'm
right?
also
So
talking about
the move when a kick comes out, or a sword, right?
A 1 second animation is forever in game time.
Yeah.
You usually get like half a second or a quarter of a second worth of animation, and most people who play on high level games can react to that.
Yeah. Well, that's what they do.
Yeah. And there's in competitive league, right? As people grow older, they literally say that they can't keep up with the kids because they don't react in half a second. They react in less. It's almost instant as you can get. And so it makes sense to me coming from that. The crash.
Yeah, that was nuts.
He escaped that almost.
He was in that fire. Grosjean, F1, in Bahrain. Bahrain was 2 weekends ago. And he was in that fire people were looking at this image live and thinking, that guy's not going to make it.
And he just jumped
And he jumped out of it.
Jumped out.
And he thanked the design, the protective design.
Wow.
So, what I love about the F1 platform, the F1 community, the F1 development, is that they're, like I said, they're at the apex of all types of development. Look at that. That is nuts.
But as I was saying, right, the top players are people my age, right?
Right.
But I thought that their reflexes were insane. They would be able to completely plan out something and a reaction and a countermeasure within less than a second. But you are referencing people going hundreds of kilometers, and in a thousandth of a second, that but also the slightest of differences.
Oh yeah, but that
matters. That they can manage.
I mean, what people should know. I mean, when those mistakes happen, they pay for the race, because usually if they touch wheels, it damages the car in a way that they're not competitive anymore. And I think that's why they implemented the DRS system, for example. So when people are passing, oh, here we go. Good, look at him. So his hands got burned.
Ugh.
Yeah. And he's a cool dude. He's a kite surfer, you know, and I mean, they do live privileged lives, but they have a certain discipline that nobody will understand. They wake up in the morning and they start training, and they have to keep up with physique, and you see them training their reactions. And yes, to go back to the game, they train on simulators.
Yeah.
Everybody's got simulators, and they have to be almost true to reality. And then somebody thought, we can take the simulator and push it out there and get even better drivers, because the problem is to participate in racing. You have to be rich,
and you have to know the people.
Yeah, so I think they're approaching it in a way and saying, look, let's broaden the spectrum. Let's broaden our audience. That's another thing. Let me get to the news, by the way.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So here I can see Paul Jal, F1 Senior Franchise Director at Qredits, said, it's an incredible time to be associated with Formula One, and we are extremely proud of the continued growth of F1 esports. So I think they're going to a place now where they have one driver on the grid that came from this ecosystem. They came from gaming. And then if your simulators are realistic, the only difference for the driver is going to be feeling the reality of the speed.
Yeah.
And if you look at them, you know, their helmets are tied to the grid. They've got masks and they got little eyes. And I think it would be, if you're an F1 pro, I think that's your dream.
It is.
You're not going to be scared to go.
Yeah. To be in the suit. Yeah.
So,
but have you seen just racing gaming setups?
Yeah, of course. You have one at home.
Oh no!
Well, not like that, but I mean, you have the flight simulator.
Yeah. I have the other side. I have the flight simulator, the HOTAS, the stick and throttle. Yeah. But people have like full on like moving chairs and multiple pedals and the gear system. Yes.
Look at that. No, you see?
He walked out of that fire.
Yeah, but look at his hand. It's serious.
It is quite serious, but you would have imagined that he would not have survived.
Well, that's not a minor burn, so I retract that statement.
It's second degree, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so I've got here at AWS Amazon, the aws.amazon.com.f1, and they provide insights for both the viewer and the teams.
Wow.
So they could actually see how somebody comes in, and then at top speed where they brake, and the other team member brakes later. Right, so you come in at 200 kilometers an hour into the curve, and they compare the trajectories, and you can see, okay, so for example, Verstappen brakes like half a second later or like a microsecond later, and then he goes into the curve, so he's faster. So it's all about braking as least as possible, and then going into full throttle in the curve. And they actually have the statistic live. They tell them they can communicate. You can push a bit harder. You can go further, because they have that analytics, right? So one good run is also data sets.
Yes.
So when they're doing qualifying and they're doing the practice days, that's what they're doing. They're gathering the data, and then they can analyze the data. They say, this curve. And by the way, the virtual cars is for them to train the tracks.
Yes.
All tracks get uploaded when they're going to, for example, to Saudi Arabia. What he'll probably be doing is practicing the runs.
They probably practice that all day.
All day, exactly. So I can imagine, okay, at turn 22, right, I have to go into third. Because when I was driving the go-kart at the go-kart course here in Aruba, so shout out to Bushiri Karting.
You need to go one day.
There's a point where you realize, okay, that stretch I can just haul. The car will hold.
Yeah.
Right? And because before you're like, let me brake because you don't want to go, right? And imagine these guys on a whole new level. And you know what's interesting as well? For example, Bahrain is the track of overtake. And Saudi Arabia is the track of top end speed, where they reach 330 kilometers an hour at the one stretch. And Monaco, for example, is all about qualifying, because once the grid is set, passing people because it's a tiny little compressed space, right? So it's almost like a gaming level. Like every level is unique, has unique challenges.
It's like Mario Kart.
Yeah, it's like Mario Kart. We're kind of going there. But yeah, so here I'll go further and talk a little bit, I think, about the companies.
The companies.
Yeah, so here I have an article from Forbes. Liberty is the owner of the media production company. And we're talking 50 million profit. And they're in the 1.3 billion revenue, right? And these are all coming in from many different streams. So you have the media rights, you have the subscription, the online platform, you've got merchandise, and then you've got the events, and then the pay-per-views and the licensing. And I think that Amazon is trying to get a deal with him for Amazon's arm of media and platform, right? So you can see Amazon is not only, and think about it, Amazon did the same thing. They created one of the most complicated shops in the world.
Yes.
On that technology, and they said, hey, let's take this technology and resell it. And boom, AWS was born. AWS Server, Amazon Web Servers. It's just a result of becoming a very efficient e-commerce platform and having all that technology on hand. So it's interesting to see that a world without technology is not really going to be relevant in any way. So anybody out there trying to create something cannot be void of using computer technology. You can't.
You could, but it won't be.
Well, yeah, but then you'll be farming and selling eggs, to the passersby. But anybody out there really is going to have to upgrade their technology, even, right? So that's what I think that F1 teaches us. See, F1 explains Amazon talks over TV rights and streaming. Yeah, so that's something they're looking at.
You can get a free mug with your Amazon Prime subscription.
Yeah.
If they make that deal.
Yeah, and let's talk about COVID. In the year 2020, every single event
was digitized,
took catastrophic hits. Yeah, so in a world where your business is ticket sales, everybody has had to make some adjustments. So, for example, I think baseball ballparks and football arenas and racing arenas all suffered the same issues. Like, oh dear, we've got a problem. Another thing is COVID is not necessarily the last pandemic.
No.
It might be the beginning of more. And people know that. People realize, anybody with a brain, okay, excuse me, people, if you don't think that, it's a good thing you're not running F1.
Yeah, it's an inevitability, really. It's just how how our environment works.
And so the shifts in business practices and the importance of online solutions, online revenue, the borderless economy, reaching people through devices. Here we are now doing Tech Impact here at Sopi Mix, right? I think, I wonder what that will mean for everybody else. So here we have this enormous following that turned to AWS. That's also experimenting with blockchain.
Yeah,
Crypto.com. That's their global sponsors. Do you think they're diversifying risk? Yes, absolutely.
I think they're just diversify. They're trying to get into every facet of the economy that they can.
Yeah, and be independent in some shape or form.
Oh, yeah.
I'm sure that one day they could say, you know what, Amazon, we're going to shift to Google. They could.
They definitely could. Yeah.
And I'm wondering, do you think that they might have like extremely complicated NDAs and data protection contracts regarding race data and driver data?
Definitely.
That must be super complicated.
I'm very certain that the that the communication line that the R is hyper protected, so that nobody else can listen in.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the
Because they talk live to each other, right? About the specification, right? So imagine if you could listen in to your fellow racer about when he's going to brake or not. So I would assume that even that is like overdeveloped, arguably.
Yeah. Let me share something interesting I just found while you were talking. So at aboutamazon.com, the key goal of F1 was redesigning the car to increase wheel-to-wheel racing between cars that is currently restricted due to the loss of downforce, right? So that we're going back to the design of the car. And this is what I'm trying to talk about. The CFD project used over 1,150 AWS compute cores to run detailed simulations of over 550 million data points that model the impact of one car's aerodynamic wake on another. Using the unmatched scalability of AWS, F1 was able to reduce the average time to run simulations by 80%, from 60 hours down to 12.
What?
So they used computer technology first and simulations first. But remember, if you're doing these kinds of things, you usually have to rent out computer cores. In Holland, there was one that I visited that had, 6,000 Apple servers, and they were running complicated simulations about, the air, things like that. And now we're at a point where they can just do that.
Wow.
And reduce development costs, because it's much cheaper to run simulations than go do it out there and destroy 15 cars worth, whatever millions. Huh?
You were away from.
Oh, I was away.
It was a little muffly.
A little muffly. Thank you. Yeah. So there we go, people. So long story short, Amazon Elastic Computing is the thing happening behind the scenes while we're watching these guys race each other, and we're cheering for Verstappen.
Insane. So, since we're back to car design, right?
Yeah.
You say it's the apex of technology.
Yeah.
Right. So, just technology in general?
Well, I'm just saying, if you want to look at what we can do with engines, that's the apex. If you want to see what drivers can do with a car, what they achieve, that's the apex. If you want to see how you run simulations to achieve those goals and save time, AWS. So they're pushing the boundaries for performance, and keep pushing that boundary. And on top of it, they're pushing to create these experiences for everyone. I'm pretty sure that I experienced at my house on my screen the most amazing F1 experience available. It's probably better than being in the bleachers, in the crowd.
You get all of the information, yeah.
It will feel cool. You can hear them and smell them, right? But yeah,
tires.
One day they'll be shooting that there'll be some kind of sensory addition to your screen where they can push some smell of decay when you're watching a horror movie. But yeah, who the hell wants that? But yeah, the experience that is created by superimposing data sets. And another thing, they do treat their crowd with respect. Right? So when you're a viewer, they assume that you can run with them with the analytics, that when they're talking about aerodynamics, like it's just normal conversation. And that's what I think is cool about the F1. They don't speak to the crowd. They don't dumb things down. They stay on point and on fact. And also when people speak, if they say a profanity, it's shocking. People, they're all professionals with lots of emotions, and there's always a narrative, there's always a story.
Yes.
And
high stakes.
High stakes. And I mean, I truly understand now when Verstappen or Hamilton or anybody really wins or does well. For example, Bottas was the number 2 driver of Mercedes, but he was always the number 2. Now he's number 1 at Alfa Romeo, and he's doing very well being 8th, and the community understands that. So in the F1 space, there's not only the winner, there's also the sub-winners.
There's the keeping your spot. And
There's the
improving.
keeping your spot, and there's, McLaren did really well this year, and now they were 4th, and now they're at the bottom. So it's like when I do long-distance racing with the high winds. A shout out to the guys at the community of windsurfing. When I'm doing the high winds and we do this long distance race, you have your own battles. So I'm not in the top. But I end up drag racing with this competitor, and we're looking at each other, and we're competitive, and I want to win, and he wants to win, and we end up in this our own little fight. And that, as a competitor, that's why you go. That's the fun part.
Yes.
Why do people love to race?
It's witty at that point.
No, as in any race. Think of it when you're a kid. Okay, who gets there first?
It's just fun.
It's just fun, right? It's just testing your ability against another.
Yeah.
Now we almost went now all the way to philosophy.
Why is it fun? No, that's another hour.
So hopefully, guys, we're gonna keep it short today. We would love to do a Sopi Mix F1 show. Me and Jeff are talking about it. Maybe we can fuse Tech Impact together with anybody really. But if you guys want to know more, send us a shout out. We'll come back with an F1 show, and then we'll keep it a little bit more to entertainment. But I always like to throw in a little tech in there.
There was something I wanted to mention, right? And sadly, I couldn't find the racer, right?
The racer?
Yeah. So what happened was there was this racer in F1 that hit the sides. One of those
sidewalls?
Not the walls. The metal things that they put. Is that do you call that a sidewall?
Rail.
The rail. Yeah. He hit the rail, right? And he never did that before, and he's top tier, right? And so they said, "Whoa, what happened, right?" And then he said he was so confident, right? I didn't hit it. The rail moved, right? And so, of course, since it's F1, it's so meticulously precise, they went and studied it, right?
Right.
While it's racing, they found out that he was right. The rails move by millimeters or centimeters while the race is going, and that difference was either he touched it or not, and they had to change the rails because of that.
Interesting. No, but when driver testimony, you gotta believe them. Remember, they do this, like you said, they know each track by heart.
No, they don't even think about it.
And the thing is, they probably do much better in a simulation because they can take a little bit more risk.
Yeah.
You understand? So they can push it further, and then once you're in the car, it's this balancing act. I mean, if you listen to Mr. Perez from Red Bull, he took pole in Saudi Arabia. That means he was the fastest driver on the course.
Wow.
And when you see him drive, it's this
clean
vectors of hauling ass. And then you're the fastest. And people always talk about when they do, I mean, Ferrari, for example, Leclerc, they are pushing the boundaries every time. It's like, they're trying to brake as late as possible and never let go of the throttle. And it's mind-boggling, really. And sometimes when I watch, I forget they're not fast-forwarding. They're not speeding up it's live speed.
It's actually like this, and then they go.
Yeah.
So imagine practicing threading a needle for an entire week. It's pretty much what they do. That's how precise it is. And then
No, wait. You got to add on something.
What?
Practice that. Yeah.
Threading the needle. Yeah.
While there's a lot of wind.
Wind.
No, well, because it's not going to be, you're not going to have
it's not going to be straight. It's going to be
stable environment.
Yeah.
It's trying to keep the lighter on. Let's keep the fire on in the wind. There's going to be a lot of chaos around you.
Oh my
And
goodness.
decision making and pressures. And racers.
Yeah.
Right? And rain and
humidity
whatever.
on grip.
Yeah, so that, for example, in Saudi Arabia, they have to go at night. They have to drive at night. They can't drive during the day. It's too hot. It's blazing. So tire performance is never, ever the same. For example, sometimes something happens mechanically and the car slips. And that's what I want to say. I totally understand when a driver wins, he has to thank the team. The team makes the car and he drives it. And that car is just as much driver as the driver, you understand? So the team takes care of the car. And the driver has to make it happen. So it is absolutely a team effort. I didn't know this before I watched the documentary. And I highly suggest that, recommend that. It's just generally a great show. If you don't know anything about racing, it's a good show to watch.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
So what is the series documentary called?
F1 Drive to Survive.
Drive to Survive, available on Netflix.
It's Netflix produced with F1.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
it's official.
Oh, and another thing I wanted to say.
Oh.
From a production standpoint, if you watch a race, these guys, it's not only about the race. When the race is over, they park, get out, and get ready for the interview.
They're celebrities.
No, but the race is not only the race; it's the race and the interview. That's one day. Imagine you're a driver. You're in your fourth year.
Yeah.
You know, okay, we're gonna go, we're gonna race, and you're in top 3, and then you park, and then you take off your helmet, and they're gonna come, and you're gonna have to give the interview. That's part of the race. That's how it's done.
Imagine breaking your brain and analyzing all of that meticulous information.
So they have to be great speakers. So Perez comes in. So how'd you feel? You're number 3. What happened at the last corner? And he has to. So they're kind of superhuman. They have to be good speakers. They have to be good drivers. They have to represent the brand. And yeah. Anyway, cool. No more. We're almost. I'm starting to become a sort of a fanboy, aren't I?
You already proclaimed yourself a fan.
Yes. All right, guys. I'll see you guys next week. We have something very interesting next week. The documentary, The Crypto King.
Crypto King.
Yeah.
Yes.
Please go watch it, but do put on your lens of this is a case of Quadriga CX, an exchange in Canada, but it does not reflect
the entirety of
the entire crypto space. That's one. And those are things that me and Jean-Luc will come back with and what you can learn from it.
And it's not about Satoshi Nakamoto either, which a lot of people assume.
Yeah. No, it's just a story. It's a detective story, really, of fraud. I haven't even finished it yet. But yes, that's going to be the subject for next week. Any closing statements?
I feel like I have to get into F1 now.
Yeah. Well, me and Jeff will be watching next week. Next week is Australia.
Ooh. So I hope everybody else had a
nice weekend.
Enjoyed the show. It was a different one for once.
Different one. Yes.
Hope that your food or whatever you're doing right now was nice or finishing up.
Yeah.
And thanks to our sponsors, Subway, SwingMasterz, and Qredits. I lagged for a second there, for allowing the Sopi Mix family to live and thrive. And till next week, thank you for watching.